Assalamualaikum and good evening everyone. Welcome to today's forum on the topic of school uniforms. Is it good or bad? My name is IZZUDDIN bin ISHAK and I will be guiding our discussion as the moderator for today's forum. We have two esteemed panelists with us today. Please welcome, to my right, Mr. AFIQ, an education policy analyst who will discuss the benefits of school uniforms, and on my left, Mr. Zarin, a civil rights advocate who will highlight the drawbacks. Now let's dive right into our discussion. We will start with the first question. Mr. AFIQ, how do controversies over school dress codes and uniforms reflect broader societal issues related to gender, race, politics, and religion?
Thank you, Mr. Ismail. Controversies surrounding school dress code and uniform often mirror larger societal debates on identity and expression. Gender norms are frequently challenged as the dress code may disproportionately target female students, reinforcing traditional standards of femininity. Issues of race emerge when dress code enforcement appears biased against students of color, penalizing cultural hairstyle or attire. For instance, policies against natural hairstyles like afros or braids can disproportionately affect black students. Politically, Tim's clothing ban highlights clashes over free speech and ideological expression within educational settings. Additionally, restriction on religious symbols in school provoke debates on religious freedoms and secularism. For example, banning hijabs or other religious attire can infringe on students' right to religious expression. These controversies reveal deep-seated societal tension and the complexities of balancing personal expression with institutional norms in educational environments.
Thank you for the brilliant answer, Mr. AFIQ. Now, Mr. Zarin, can you provide some recent examples where school dress code policies have sparked protests or legal challenges, and what were the core issues at stake?
Certainly, Mr. Ismail. Recent incidents include protests against dress codes accused of discrimination, such as those targeting BIPOC girls for attire considered distracting or inappropriate. For instance, in 2019, students at a high school in Houston protest a dress code that they felt unfairly targeted black girls for wearing head wraps. Legal challenges have arisen over bans on politically charged slogans or symbols on clothing, which students argue are protected forms of expression. A notable example is the case in Texas where students wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts were disciplined, sparking debates over racial and political expression in school. Disputes over cultural attire and hairstyles also reflects challenge to dress code perceived as culturally insensitive or discriminatory. In 2020, a Native American student in Oklahoma faced suspensions for wearing a traditional beaded cap at graduation, leading to a lawsuit. These cases highlight ongoing struggles over inclusivity, personal autonomy, and the boundaries of school authority in regulating student appearance.
These are compelling points. Let's shift to the arguments in favor of school uniforms. Now, Mr. AFIQ, what are the primary arguments in favor of school uniforms according to proponents? How do they justify the implementation of uniforms despite criticism?
Proponents of school uniform argue that they promote a sense of equality by leveling a socio-economic differences among students. By standardizing what students wear, uniform can reduce peer pressure related to fashion trends, which help create a more focused learning environment. Supporters also contend that uniform enhance and school safety by making it easier to identify intruders and by preventing gang affiliation through standardized dress. Moreover, uniforms are seen as instilling disciplines and pride in students. contributing to a cohesive school community. For example, a study conducted in Long Beach, California, showed a significant drop in school crime rates after the implementation of uniform. Despite criticism regarding restriction on individual expression and added financially burdens, proponents argue that the benefit of uniforms in terms of schools' culture and safety outweigh these concerns. They believe that uniform help create an environment conducive to learning and personal development, and point to instances where academic performance and attendance have improved following the adoption of uniforms.
Thank you, Mr. AFIQ. Now, Mr. Zarin, what are the main arguments against school uniforms as outlined by opponents? How do they argue against uniform policies?
Opponents of school uniforms argue that they infringe upon student freedom of expression and individuality, suppressing creativity and self-discovery during formative years. Critics contend that uniforms fail to address underlying issues such as bullying or academic performance, serving as superficial remedies to complex social problems. Financially, uniforms impose additional costs on families, particularly those already struggling economically, thereby exacerbating inequalities rather than mitigating them. Additionally, strict uniform policies may reinforce gender norms and cultural assimilation, marginalizing diverse identities within school communities. For instance, enforcing skirts for girls and pants for boys can perpetuate traditional gender roles. Opponents advocate for more inclusive and flexible dress code policies that respect students' autonomy while promoting a positive learning environment. They argue that schools should focus on creating a culture of respect and inclusivity that goes beyond superficial uniformity.
Alright, both of you have provided insightful perspectives. Now, let's move on to a historical context. Mr. AFIQ, what role did President Clinton play in promoting the school uniform movement, and how did his support influence public perception and policy decisions?
President Clinton's endorsement of school uniform in his 1996 State of the Union address significantly boosted the movement across the United States. His advocacy framed uniform as a practical measure to enhance school safety and discipline, particularly in urban areas plagued by violence and peer pressure related to clothing brand. Clinton's support shifted public perception by presenting uniform as a solution to improve educational outcomes and reduce social disparities. This high-profile endorsement led to many school districts adopting and revising uniform policies, influenced by the perceived benefit of uniform in promoting students' behavior and academic performance. Following his speech, there was a notable increase in the number of schools implementing uniform policies, particularly in public schools seeking to emulate the perceived success of uniform in private and charter schools.
Thank you for that historical insight, Mr. AFIQ. Finally, Mr. Zarin, how do school uniforms purportedly contribute to school safety and discipline? According to supporters, are there empirical studies or examples that validate these claims?
Supporters argue that school uniforms contribute to a safer and more disciplined learning environment by minimizing distractions and enhancing student focus on academics. Uniforms are believed to reduce instances of bullying and peer pressure associated with clothing choices, promoting a sense of inclusivity and belonging among students. For example, uniforms can prevent students from being teased or bullied for not wearing the latest fashion trends, which can create a more harmonious school environment. However, while some empirical studies, such as those conducted by Virginia Dra, suggest correlation between uniform policies and improved attendance rates and academic performance, the evidence is not universally conclusive. Other studies have found no significant impact on student outcome, indicating that the effectiveness of uniforms can vary depending on the context and implementation. It's crucial to consider these nuances when evaluating their effectiveness. Additionally, critics argue that while uniforms may address surface level issues, they do not tackle deeper problems like school climate, teaching quality, and student engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Zarin. Now, before we conclude, I have one more question to ask each panelist. For Mr. AFIQ, could you elaborate on how school uniforms might impact academic performance and student behavior? Are there any specific examples or studies that highlight these effects?
Certainly, Mr. Ismail. Proponents of school uniform often cite studies indicating that uniform can positively impact academic performance and student behavior. For example, a study conducted in 2010 found that schools with uniform policy had higher attendance rates and lower suspension rates compared to uniform without compared to schools without uniforms. The theory is that uniform reduce distraction related to clothing choice, allowing students to focus more on their studies. Additionally, uniforms are believed to create a sense of discipline and order, which can translate to improved behavior. Schools like this in Long Beach, California, reported a decrease in the school crime rates and improvement in the test score after implementing uniforms. These examples suggest that uniforms can create a more conducive learning environment, although it's important to note that the context and implementation play a crucial role in these outcomes.
Thank you for the brilliant answer, Mr. AFIQ. Now, Mr. Zarin, in your opinion, what are some alternative strategies that schools can employ to achieve the same goals that proponents of uniforms advocate for, such as reducing bullying and promoting equality?
That's a great question, Mr. Ismail. Instead of enforcing student uniforms, schools can focus on fostering a positive and inclusive school culture through comprehensive anti-bullying programs and promoting empathy and respect among students. Implementing social-emotional learning (SEL) curricula can help students develop better interpersonal skills and understand the impact of their behavior on others. Schools can also work on creating more inclusive dress codes that allow for personal expression while maintaining a respectful learning environment. Providing support for students from low-income families, such as clothing vouchers or free school supplies, can help reduce economic disparities without mandating uniforms. Additionally, promoting open dialogues about diversity and inclusion can help create a more accepting school atmosphere. These strategies address the root causes of issues like bullying and inequality more effectively than simply enforcing uniformity.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Zarin. Now, as we conclude, I would like to recap some of the key points raised during our discussion. We've explored how school dress codes and uniforms can reflect broader societal issues related to gender, race, politics, and religion. We've heard about recent protests and legal challenges, highlighting the ongoing tensions and debates around these policies. On one side, proponents argue that uniforms can promote equality, enhance school safety, and create a focused learning environment. While on the other side, opponents stress the importance of individuality, expression, and the potential negative impacts of strict dress codes on students' development and perception of authority. We've also delved into the historical context, examining the influence of President Clinton's support for school uniforms, and discussed the empirical evidence supporting and challenging the effectiveness of these policies. More importantly, we've considered alternative strategies that schools can employ to achieve the same goals without mandating uniforms. To conclude, I want to thank our panelists, Mr. AFIQ and Mr. Zarin, for their thoughtful contributions. Your insights have provided a comprehensive understanding of the complexities surrounding school uniforms and dress codes. Thank you to our audience for joining us and engaging in this crucial discussion. The debate on school uniforms and dress codes continues to evolve, reflecting the diverse values and priorities of our society. As we move forward, it's essential to balance the benefits of uniformity with the importance of personal expression and inclusivity. Thank you and Assalamualaikum. Have a good evening, everyone.